This is Dr. Gary Kellner, and I would like to welcome you to a special edition of Fair Game. On February the 28th, military forces of the United States and Israel launched a series of devastating airstrikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Within just a few hours, the Ayatollah, who is the supreme leader of the Iranian government, was dead. And so was most of the people around him. Most of his inner circle, the senior leaders of that regime, were taken out. In the last 4 weeks, the United States has launched thousands of sorties against Iran. Most of their navy has been destroyed. 90% of their ballistic missile sites have been destroyed. President Trump has told the American people in a recent address that we are ahead of schedule, and he believes that the United States will be able to leave rather quickly. And yet, polls tell us that about 2/3 of the American people are opposed to this war. A high percentage of them are doubtful that the administration will be able to achieve its objectives. Certainly, some of this is rooted in Donald Trump's personality. He is a polarizing figure. People are either strongly support him or they are strongly repelled by him. Reminds me of a character we had in American politics in the 1930s named Huey P. Long. Probably one of the best things ever happened in this country is he did not get to be president. But Huey P. Long, who was a demagogue if ever there was one, used to say, whenever you mention Huey P. Long, you better either duck or pucker, because they're either going to want to hit you or kiss you. It's pretty much that way with Donald Trump. So it's difficult to have a substantive conversation about his policies or about the way he executes the office of President of the United States. There is no doubt that in these last 4 weeks, the United States and Israel have achieved stunning successes through the air war. Now, most of the goals that were articulated early, destroying the Iranian Navy, taking out the ballistic missiles, damaging their ability to launch nuclear weapons, have been successful. There has been conversation about regime change. That one is proving much more difficult. It is almost impossible to achieve regime change anywhere in the world without putting boots on the ground. Iran is a big country. It has 90 million people. It has a standing army of more than 600,000 men and a militia of almost 350,000. It would be a brutal, bloody slog to try to take that country. There's not a lot of appetite for that, even within this administration. So the president appears is looking for some kind of an off-ramp, and yet he has several problems. He has a problem with the Straits of Hormuz, which the Iranians have closed, choking off about 25% of the world's oil exports. And as everyone knows, that has been felt at the pump all around this world. The prices of gas have skyrocketed in the last month and will probably go higher. So before the United States disengages, there has to be some resolution to the problem in the Straits of Hormuz, or it is going to continue to have a grave impact on the world economy. So, what to do? Well, there are those who just say, you know what, this is a bad idea, we shouldn't be there. There are other people who think, oh, it's a pretty good idea, but, we've already been there 4 weeks. Shouldn't we move on to the next episode of whatever the United States is going to get into next? To me, I think it's important to try to step back from the president's style and the president's personality and talk about the fundamental issues. Let's start with issue number one. since 1979, when radical Islamists took over the nation of Iran. That government has been the #1 exporter of terrorism in this world. There is not a terrorist activity in the Middle East in the last 47 years that they haven't paid for or helped coordinate. But you will listen to many people and they will have you think that this is all about Israel. No, there are dozens of countries where the Iranians have sponsored terrorist acts over this period of time. And it's complicated by this. There is nothing to indicate any desire on Iran's part to change the way it does business. Every American president, including President Reagan in this 47-year period, have looked for moderate elements to work with in the Iranian government. There aren't any. They look for moderates within the political landscape of Iran. Well, they're either in jail or dead because this regime rules with an iron fist. And one of the things that I think we have understood in the first 4.5 weeks of this war is that you can take out the supreme leader, you can take out the first or second echelons of the leadership, and guess what, boys and girls? The same folks at the third and fourth levels are committed to the same things that their bosses were. This is a leadership cadre as ideologically committed as the Nazi leadership was in the 1940s. You can take out the supreme leader, but those people have a fanatical commitment to imposing their view of Islam on the entire world and eliminating the great Satan, the United States, and the little Satan, Israel. No American president, starting with President Reagan, who tried hard to find somebody to work with in Iran, none of them have been successful. And you add to that this, they tell you what they're going to do, essentially, when they get a nuclear weapon. One of the most important rules in this world is if a dictator tells you what he's going to do, you need to believe him. Because the history of dictatorships is that they are even worse than advertised. The world cannot afford to run a risk of a nuclear Iran on the vain and idle hope that somehow, some way, Iran will become more moderate and more responsible. If anything, over the last 47 years, they have been emboldened by the weakness of the West. They have been emboldened by the fear that they have engendered in Western governments. So, what to do? With all due respect to the president and the members of the administration, it is highly unlikely that we are going to effect regime change in this war unless we put boots on the ground and we're prepared to go in for a long time. It's doubtful the American people are ready to support that. In fact, the most recent polls indicate that almost 2/3 of the American voters are opposed to military action in Iran. On the darkest days of the Vietnam War, you still had a substantial number of Americans who were committed. It didn't rarely get out of the 40 percentile range. American people are nowhere near that right now. So the question is, how does the president off-ramp? Can you say that knocking out 90% of their ballistic missile sites, dramatically damaging their capacity to make and deliver nuclear weapons, and destroying their Navy can be called a win? Well, I think you can. It is a win if this regime does not find a way to deliver nuclear weapons and destroy Israel. It is a win if they don't plunge the Middle East into nuclear war. These are difficult days. And as I said earlier, given the president's style, There are significant numbers of American people who just have problems with him, which make it all the more important that the president and his team communicate with clarity and conviction, with courage, what is happening and the options that are in front of us. This is Dr. Gary Kellner, and this is Fair Game.